Now we will have Cro-Ken, the Earthworks artist, talk about his work and bring one of his pieces, the one that we have at the entrance to the show here.
Brought this one forward. And let's see if I can separate well enough. Let's see if I can keep it short. What I do is I mix paints and catalysts to activate the paint. If you know, like the red oval of Jupiter, all of this is going on in space. So by mixing paints and catalysts, I set paint in motion to recreate the forces of nature that shape and mold everything, near and far. Near and far because self-similarity creates the same thing as Emerson says. There's nothing in the universe which isn't created in the human body. And so what I have to do is, in mixing these paints, I have to manipulate space-time and matter using paint for the most part, because I have to predict things in advance. And there are certain predictable things that I have to use my imagination in a way where I have to create a new illusion. I have to come up with a new experiment, and that creates a new image. Emerson said, I'm working on a catalog which is celebrating the 150th anniversary of Ralph Waldo Emerson's Conduct of Life, and I call it the Conduct of Paint. He said that when we choose our own ways as opposed to nature's, nature will not be slow in undeceiving us. So what I'm doing by mixing the paints and catalysts, I can recreate the red oval of Jupiter. Not only what space looks like, but how it moves, which is probably more important. Because when you see a cloud, you understand it's a cloud, like a photograph of a toaster, but you don't know what it is and its behavior and how it moves. So his book, The Conduct of Life, mine, The Conduct of Paint. And when I think about what I'm doing, it's not realism or abstraction, because what I'm dealing with is the actual. It's a physical investigation of the planet. I want to do things that go beyond my imagination. I mean, I know a lot through years, a whole life of doing art, going to many schools and masters at NYU, nice connection with the NYU students here. And it's now about not doing what I have and what I can do within my imagination, but tapping in on what goes beyond my imagination. Because although it goes beyond my imagination, it doesn't go beyond my efforts and abilities to see beyond what technology can show us today. So these, in a sense, are abstracts waiting to be called realistic when technology catches up. You'll see here, I'll raise it up. You see this, I often have mini paintings. Back in '82, I did some shows in New Zealand with these mini paintings, because many artists were doing monumental scale paintings. And I felt that it was very possible to show a huge world in a small space, not 12 by 20 feet. And they loved that I could have a whole box of paintings, 80 paintings in a very small box. This painting here, you see there's a blue hazy area. This painting is a close-up of that place, which may be 700,000 light years away. So the next solo show I'm doing is called This Is That and That, because you'll see a number of these mini paintings on a canvas or beside a canvas, and you'll know that this one could be a close-up of that area, or the opposite, because self-similarity will create things in a microscopic view as well as a telescopic view. So, I like to work with nature, and I make so as if it's not enough to be able to set paintings in motion, I have to actually create a balance between my inner and outer self, because I have to be sensitive to things outside myself. So these paintings force me to strike that balance, and I add the element of being able to make my paintings in high altitude, low altitude, below freezing, above freezing. So the same experiment done in London, Anchorage, and Death Valley will have a totally different experience. What I'm trying to do is not just learn about paint for paint's sake. I learn about nature at the same time. So right over there is another one of the paintings. And I use, right there, the green one, I'll use realism and abstraction, but the most important thing for me is the actual, because we started with actual. We glorify ourselves to think about what mankind has done, leaving nature often out of the equation, which we now know was not the thing to do. So now I believe a triad is created. There's realism, abstraction, and the actual. And to me, that gives that whole trellis concept the strength of three. And so realism and abstraction are secondary, and the actual is the most important thing. And as you mentioned, I want to repeat an experiment of which I already know the end result of. I want to learn something new every time. And so paint allows me to do that. And I just remind myself that there's one great pursuit of all, and that is to remain connected to nature and a sense of play. And the other day I was just thinking that they used to have to pull me in during the winter. Come on, get inside, because I loved winter. Even though I thought, as a tennis player, I wanted to be in California where I could play tennis year-round. And I came here because it's the art capital of the world. But now, I love all seasons. Personally, I love summer, but professionally, I love winter. It's the greatest time. Because when Pollock said, what Pollock did was when he threw the paint onto the canvas with a stick or a brush or whatever, that moment of potential or potentia was a few seconds. Now, if I do the experiment in the summer, I've got to work really, really fast because it will end up drying in a few hours. And if I do it in the winter, it will suspend that animation slowly and be able to last months. And in fact, there comes a point to where it freezes, like life forms. And only at a certain point does it get unlocked and animate itself and come to life again. So I document this because what happens is what you see here when a painting comes to rest technically is really a painted. It's the video that's the painting. And so this is a physical investigation of paint, and I learn about paint nature at the same time. Yeah?
I understand the chemical processes that you follow in terms of the painting. How do you take, when you do it in the space aspects, how do you take into account the different gravitational pulls from the elements?
What happens with this art is that everything is an influence. Did I use a brush? Did I use a stick? Did I not use any of those things? Did I have a flat surface? Did I have a surface that is with a topography like mountains and so on? So you start to realize that every little thing is a part of it. And the other day someone said, well, what about this? And have you done this? And have you done that? I said, that's what I want, is somebody to take this and go from it and say that they too want to be an experimentalist and ask questions that they don't know the answer of. And everything counts. Every little thing will influence it differently.
Will you talk for a minute about the role of video and music in your work? I know that there are many dimensions to it.
We do time-release performances. Matt Sullivan and I, we have 3 coming up, one at Cooper Union's Great Hall, one at Symphony Space, another one at NYU, at the Lowe Theater. And I set these paintings in motion. There are 2 ways to do it. If a composition is made, a musical composition, I know when the crescendos are, when this is going to happen, when that's going to happen, and I will try to make my paintings predicting that. And because it is in a fixed amount of time, I know that I can have a projected video that is pre-recorded, so that the red oval of Jupiter is showing, so that this is showing some past paint experiments from CBGBs and other places. And so when it's done with an improvisation, we're all doing what I call a reactive improvisation, because we have to react to things outside ourselves. So if the paint is about to break and breach, and it does, the musicians will go crazy in that spot, and when things start to stabilize, they'll calm down within the music. So we have to be able to deal in this time release continuum.